All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode. Feeling a bit better about this topic today. It's a lot more interesting. So, this is what I got on my radar for y'all today. We're going to be talking about Ukraine, Venezuela, Greenland, and how all of these are kind of related to each other. So let's first talk about Greenland. Trump has at long last, quite possibly from what we hear on the news, secured a deal with Greenland. Now, we all know that just like in Venezuela, everyone knows the narrative of Venezuela. They made it very obvious. We're there for the oil, and it's for economic reasons. And it's a power play. Now, people are thinking the same thing for Greenland, right, and its resources, but I think it goes a step even beyond just Greenland. I think Trump is looking long-term. He's looking not just at Greenland, Emil, but he is looking at Canada. And what do you think of that take?
You think he wants to take Canada?
Oh, yeah. I think his real goal is Canada. Because listen, he's talked about Russia in a positive light so many times. And it's hard for me to believe he views them as he views them as he wants them to be a friendly competitor in a way, right? So what is the play for the Arctic really suggesting here? I think it's exactly what I just said. And here we have this article from long ago, back in September. Trump again floats Canada joining the U.S. as the 51st state.
The entirety
Why don't
of Canada
you just...
as a state.
Absolutely. I support this, personally. I think culturally, the Canadian people are so close to America that they might as well be America 2.0. So I fully support this full annexation of Canada into America. This is the American continent, after all.
I mean, it kind of seems a little self-important to just claim it all as ours.
Well, another thing you have to understand is that a lot of the western provinces, particularly in Alberta, they have independence movements. They are interested in seceding away from the Canadian government. Even Quebec's in an interesting spot because it's not even fully Canadian. It's very French historically. You know that, Emil? Quebec being very historically French.
For some reason, I know that. How do I know that?
Wonderful. You just do. I mean, shit. So that's what I really think the Greenland play is really about. That's why he wants to establish military bases there and get an economic foothold in the Arctic. Because it's about competing with Canada and essentially strangling them so much. We want to strangle Canada economically so much that they're essentially forced to rely on us for everything. And once they're forced to rely on us for everything, well, you're basically an American. You're basically American at this point, right? Welcome to the country.
I think Greenland's more about the logistics base, because having such a large logistics base would allow us to contend against Russia far easier.
No, it does also. I think that's just a byproduct, and it's just a convenient narrative to push, but it is true that it does conveniently double as this being a front against Russia and any of the other Arctic states. Like China claims to be one, it wants to be one badly, but it's not. And so speaking of Russia, while it is true that Trump views Russia in a very positive light, you could say, almost a friendly light, I would like to address the conspiracy theories surrounding this subject. You know, with the whole Russiagate thing, people are familiar with that. That's been talked to death. But even so, I think even people who just believe in this new world order idea believe that all of these countries are like working together somehow behind the scenes, or this group of people working together behind the scenes. But if you just observe what everyone's doing, that's not the case. Everyone's motivated for their own interests at the end of the day. A kingdom divided cannot stand. So we're just looking at the old world. This ain't nothing. There's nothing new about this old world order that we're witnessing crumble before our eyes, right? So, listen.
Yep.
Or where am I going? Where am I going here? You can see how they're not working together in literally the Ukraine war. And while it's true that America's profiting off the military-industrial complex, I think it's also worth noting that Trump genuinely wants to end the war probably at this point because he's trying to paint himself as this man of peace now these days. As much as he's starting wars, he's also trying to be a man of peace, right? Because if you look at the Venezuela operation, we didn't go to war with the people, right? We just kidnapped their president. We basically took over a country without firing a single shot, Emil. Now, while that is very warlike in its operation, and how the results ended up actually being incredibly peaceful, right?
I mean,
So,
if I recall from the article I read, the Venezuelan president was kind of a dictator. Am I remembering that right?
Right. That's what I've heard as well, yes. I've seen so many clips of the Venezuelan people celebrating and rejoicing that, like, I'd have to kind of believe that what we did was a genuinely good thing there. I'm not going to lie to you.
I mean, despite the obvious oil grab.
Despite the obvious oil grab, but at the same time, provided we don't rip them off like a bunch of greedy fucking, bankers, then maybe perhaps their country will certainly benefit greatly from such a cooperation on, connecting with the world again at large, instead of being this hostile dictatorship. But, yeah, so Russia genuinely doesn't want to end the war because it kind of wants to take, like you said, they have their aspiration. Putin definitely has his aspirations of the old Russian Empire, right? And so do a lot of the Russian people themselves, by the way, for what it's worth mentioning. And I think there is some sort of validity to that, to the extent that insofar that you're just reclaiming the parts that are truly ethnically Russian, like in the Donbass region where it all originally started, right? I think it makes sense, and I'm only saying it's making sense because it's going to be the same argument that Trump ends up using, by the way, to probably annex Canada at some point. Because we're just going to be so culturally close, so economically tied, the history is so interconnected, it's like, why are we pretending we're not the same culture? You know what I mean? Just because you have a little bit of a different accent? Fuck. Texans have a wildly different accent than people from New York. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, just kind of wanted to dispel some conspiracy theories there. Although, if we are to entertain any conspiracy theories, I do have one. But I think before we address that, I just want to hear some of your thoughts on all of what we presented here. I want to hear some of your takes.
The stated, or what is this, 2025, before taking office, the stated reason for wanting Greenland is national security. I mean,
right.
at least for me, that's not much of a reason at all. Because the war against Venezuela, I get, there was a reason for that. Even Russia against Ukraine, there is a stated reason, even if it's entirely false. like the Russians' reason against Ukraine is like trying to take back Russia's old glory, I think. But Greenland still doesn't make sense to me. I mean, aside from the national security thing, just like why, like, if we're just playing a big game of Risk, I suppose if we're already positioning, assuming war is happening, that might be a valid reason. But outside of that, it doesn't seem like there's much of a reason.
Yeah, no. Like, there's very real reasons that World War III is going to happen. And it ain't because of elites pushing things. It is just because a bunch of people believe wildly different things about their ways of living, and they want to enforce it on each other instead of just sharing it with those who are comfortable with and wanting to be shared with it, you know what I mean? And just coexisting in a proper order.
Right.
So, World War III is kind of an inevitability. And to be honest with you, Emil, because I view it as an inevitability, I do not at all mind that we make these power plays that Trump is making on the globe. I've actually not really enjoyed his presidency that much, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't really, I haven't really benefited from it. I don't think it was that great. But I do like what he's doing on the political world stage, and I also do like what he's doing with ICE. I do admittedly like that. Obviously, they're trained like shit, and there's lots of problems. But they can be worked on.
Well, I actually had an interesting theory just now.
Oh yeah? Well, let's hear it. Stream of consciousness, baby.
So
Let's hear it live.
China and Russia are allies, right? Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so one thing that I noticed is that China is positioning in the Pacific Ocean at the same time this Russian-Ukraine war is happening. And at the same time, Trump is trying to go after Greenland at the same time this Venezuelan oil grab. And it...
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's not all a coincidence.
And so it seems like China is stalling America so that Russia can get a better position, and then that the Greenland thing is again stalling America, and so we can't get into a position against Russia. I mean, if we're taking all of this from a perspective of World War III is already going to happen, and this is just the preparation stage, then suddenly everything makes a morbid amount of sense.
I think it already started, honestly. I think World War III's been started since
like
the
a Cold
propaganda war with you. Yeah, with Ukraine. I think it really started there already. I kind of already said that we're going to sleepwalk into World War III, and you can see how all the major powers are kind of positioning themselves to basically take advantage of the chaos that's about to ensue. I mean, the chaos is already ensuing. It's just going to be slow escalations up until, you know what I'm saying, until we finally recognize and just call it out for what it is and say, well, we're a world at war now. So let's talk about a fun conspiracy theory that I've developed. I think maybe it's a bit more reasonable than what's floating out there these days, and we can see it in Trump's actions. Trump has made tweets before how he's like the greatest, maybe even above Jesus. Which is to say, he might have something of a messianic complex. He might actually think he's him. Like, he's the guy to bring the world peace. And you can see that in his moves in the Middle East. Trump says peace board promises rosier future for Middle East 13 hours ago on MSNnews.com. A new peace board marks the first steps toward an end to conflict in the Middle East and the wider globe, President Trump told world leaders gathered in Davos, Switzerland. See, a lot of people talk about this place, Davos, the World Economic Forum being there and shit. It's a lot. It's a center for. It's over a lot of conspiracies. And I'll be honest, I think the vision, even amongst these people, is so divided that you can't really consider them like an actual organization that's going to that is actually going to make these changes that people are claiming, right? Because especially because often these changes fail. There's no way this is the guy that brings peace in the Middle East. It's not going to happen. He's trying to, though, right? And I think a lot of presidents actually get tested. This is going a bit more into the conspiracy land. I think it is true that the president does get tested for being the Messiah. And there was this organization called the Sanhedrin in Israel. And it is this rabbinical court of Jewish law in Israel. And naturally, these people would be looking for their Messiah, right? Because that's what the whole point of observing Jewish law, right? Because it's prophesized and shit. And so I think they've been testing U.S. presidents. And each U.S. president, since probably George Bush, has been thinking, they've been operating under the impression that they're going to be the one to solve all the world's problems. Which is why, for example, it is prophesied that the Messiah would wage a war on evil. You could think that George Bush's war on terror as filling something of that role because he thought he maybe could do something like that. The Sanhedrin was created in the wake of 2001, by the way. The war on terror. I think it's interesting timing for this attempt to revive the organization pops up at then of all times, right? Then you had Obama, and his whole thing was about peace, right? He tried to bring peace to the world. That didn't really work, though. Which is another trait of the prophesied Messiah. And then there's Trump, and he essentially is probably I won't say indoctrinated, but he's taught in the ways of the Kabbalah in a way that is probably not as wise as he thinks. And so there's that third requirement where the Messiah will just be incredibly wise or whatever. I forget. I'm just paraphrasing. I forget that bit. It's not as important. Point is, this guy thinks he's the king and he's going to be the one to do it all. Which is why you can see how his push to bring peace in the Ukraine war is very real. However, Putin might be at a point where he's like, nah, fuck this shit. I'm getting more. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
They could be on some level being friendly in a competitive way, but at the end of the day, everyone's still selfish and playing for themselves. To say there is this real coordinated conspiracy going on at all is just, it's kind of foolish because the undertaking required to do such a thing would require an actual real leader, and I don't think we've seen that yet. I don't think we've seen that yet, Emil. I don't think we've actually seen a real leader yet. So until that movement actually gets a real leader, it's just to say it's the secret cabal running things. It's a fantasy. It's a lie. Frankly, it's just doomerism on steroids, nihilism given teeth.
I mean, I think we have seen a real leader, but it's been 200 years since then,
It was Abraham Lincoln.
I said 200 years.
Yeah, 1800s, 1863, close enough.
Really?
Yeah, slavery wasn't that long ago.
American Revolution, George Washington.
Oh. Some say he was a Freemason. A lot of people in the conspiracy world don't like Freemasons.
Well, just saying, those guys made a country out of wildlands.
No, I appreciate the founding fathers. They did a fan-fucking-tastic job. The American project is going, about as good as well as you could hope for it to go. And all it needs is a proper leader and a vision to actually restore what was truly seen in the original blueprint. I'm excited. We are living in extraordinary times. We are witnessing history day by day. I think next we'll just talk about the AI revolution that's coming at this point, because that's what I'm feeling. But any closing thoughts that you want to maybe wrap up on here? I think I've just about said everything I needed to say, from Ukraine to Venezuela to Greenland. I even brought Canada into the mix.
Well, we already covered.
Yeah.
We already
covered the
why
conspiracy.
the Venezuelan war, was it a war? It wasn't really a war. The Venezuelan thing
It wasn't
happened.
really a war. It was just kind of an operation that we kind of just took over a country. We basically annexed them.
We covered why that happened. And the Russian-Ukrainian war, did we actually talk about why that started in the first place?
No, you didn't. You were supposed to. You never brought it up.
You were talking. I'll do it now.
You could always talk.
So...
I don't bite. Baby.
Let's see here. Began in February 2014.
Oh, we're going way back. We're going like 12 years type back.
I'm not gonna read this whole thing. It's a YouTube. It's a Wikipedia
Bro, I was
page.
like,
it's a pretty massive Wikipedia page.
I was a child.
But the following the Revolution of Dignity, which I think is important. I believe it was here that Ukraine was on the fence about joining the NATO, I think, or the EU association. Yeah, the Ukraine was on the fence about joining it, but because Russia was Ukraine's largest trade partner, there was also pressure from their side to refuse it, and so they were on the fence for like ever. And then it's essentially the people decided to take matters into their own hands. They took over the government in a big
some
riot.
People say that was a CIA operation.
Riot, coup, something like that. There's a word for that. But
yeah.
The people took over the government, and then basically, did they actually reinstate? They went back to a version of their constitution that they used to have, and so today, Russia took more aggressive action in response, basically, because Russia really doesn't want Ukraine joining the EU. So that's why
Right.
the Russian thing happened.
See, now that you gotta understand that there's a lot of people who are like still stuck in a Cold War mentality. And there's a lot of people who like also have like predatory business practices. And there's a good chance that we actually instigated the Ukraine war at the end of the day, because we're trying to like economically constrict Russia, which is again more proof that there's another fucking shot in the foot to the conspiracy theorist crowd. because they're not working together.
I know Russia is trying to say, Russia. I think it was their stated reason for the Ukrainian war was in response to the coup of the government. They're something along the lines of taking it back. Although I'm pretty sure the Russians just want to go back to their former glory, because I'm fairly certain Ukraine used to be part of Russia way back when.
Sure.
Yeah, so
You could even probably make the argument that they're the equivalent of Canadians. I probably wouldn't even blame them for taking it all back. Because I do think at the end of the day, people need to be able to recognize and identify their own people. So it's important that borders be reshaped to essentially recognize that fact, right? Because we are animals. We need to mark our territory like any other species. It is a very natural thing, and we shouldn't treat it like it's an unnatural thing, because it's not. It is it's a biological reality ingrained to us that we have to contend with, which is what all of warfare essentially comes down to at the end of the day. And we should be preaching peace, because the fighting is silly when the solution is so goddamn simple. I'm not going to tell you what that solution is, not yet. I'm just going to tease it. I'm just going to tease it right now. I'm going to tease it right now before I really let the tiger out of its cage, the lion, so to that.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think. That's another one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode. We're going to see y'all in the next one.